Welcome to question number 26, the final question of the Treatise on the One God and the Summa Theologia. I'm Dave Palmer. Thank you for being with me for this question. I love this question. St. Thomas Aquinas ends this treatise with a bang because this is about happiness. If you've ever asked yourself, what is it that is going to ultimately make me happy? Or maybe you've asked yourself, what is heaven like? What is it like to be united with God? And what is that? How do I even describe it? Well, that's what he gets at in this question, and this is really important. And you're also going to notice, as has been the case previously, like when we talked about the attributes of God, is that St. Thomas Aquinas is always trying to make that connection between God and human beings, and he does so in a really, really big and important way in this question of the Summa. So let's get right to it. In article number 1 of 4, he says, whether beatitude belongs to God. He says, beatitude belongs to God in a very special manner, for nothing else is understood to be meant by the term beatitude than the perfect good of an intellectual nature. So the perfect good, the best that an intellectual nature can possibly have is beatitude. That's why it's going to be the description of heaven for us, which is capable of knowing that it has a sufficiency of the good which it possesses. So one of the criteria is that not only do you have the maximum good that you can experience, but you also have to have an awareness that you do have that, to which it is competent that good or ill may befall, and which can control its own actions. Okay, so there has to be free will. All of these things belong in a most excellent manner to God, namely to be perfect and to possess intelligence, whence beatitude belongs to God in the highest degree. Article 2, whether God is called the blessed in respect of his intellect. And so St. Thomas Aquinas here is saying, okay, well, God is beatitude. God is perfectly happy and has knowledge of his, he is beatitude. But how does this work? What faculty, so to speak, of God is related to this happiness, to this beatitude? Beatitude is the perfect good of an intellectual nature. Thus it is that, as everything desires the perfection of its nature, intellectual nature desires naturally to be happy. Now that which is most perfect in any intellectual nature is the intellectual operation, by which, in some sense, it grasps everything. Whence the beatitude of every intellectual nature consists in understanding. So this is related to our intellect, our understanding. And, just as a little side note, one of the big controversies in philosophy, especially of the last 200-300 years, is what can man know? And many of the more, I guess you could say, skeptical philosophers have really tried to limit man's ability to know. And I think, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, if you limit our ability to know things, you're limiting our ability to know God and also to experience beatitude. One philosopher that really stands out is Immanuel Kant, 18th century German philosopher, who basically said we can't know things in themselves, very, very much limiting reason and knowledge. All right, so Thomas goes on. Now in God, to be and to understand are one and the same thing, differing only in the manner of our understanding them. Beatitude must therefore be assigned to God in respect of his intellect, as also to the blessed, who are called blessed by reason of the assimilation of his beatitude. So you can kind of connect the dots here that our assimilation with God is going to have to do with knowledge. And I would say that Thomas doesn't say this directly, but there is going to be a connection between our knowledge of the world, our understanding of the things in the created world and how they relate to God. And so our life here below, even before we get to heaven, God willing, is an ability for us to come to know God through his creation, as we've already kind of spoken about previously in another video. Article number 3, whether God is the beatitude of each of the blessed. Now, we talk about the blessed, we're talking about those in heaven, all right? We're blessed, but the blessed are those who are already experiencing the beatific vision. The beatitude of an intellectual nature consists in an act of the intellect. In this way, we may consider two things, namely the object of the act, which is the thing understood, and the act itself, which is to understand it. If then beatitude be considered on the side of the object, God is the only beatitude, for everyone is blessed from the sole fact that he understands God, in accordance with the saying of St. Augustine, who said, "Blessed is he who knoweth thee, though he know not else." But as regard the act of understanding, beatitude is a created thing in beatified creatures, but in God, even in this way, it is an uncreated thing. So it's in our beatitude is a created thing, because only in God is it an uncreated thing that is part of his very essence of who he is, because he is beatitude. He is happiness, which if there's one thing you take out of these 25 articles on the nature of God and the one true God, is that he is. He is all of the attributes that we associate with him: perfection and goodness and infinity and immutability and his knowledge and his will. It's all one package. It's all, it just is. It's hard for us to grasp that, right? Finally, Article 4, whether all other beatitude is included in the Beatitude of God. This is where Thomas is going to make a connection between those things that we experience here below, not on a supernatural level, but on a natural level, that we often associate with our beatitude, our happiness. And rather than saying, those are horrible, those are terrible, he's going to connect it to God and say there's a connection, because these are all good things. So check this out. Whatever is desirable in whatsoever beatitude, whether true or false, interestingly, pre-exists wholly and in a more eminent degree in the divine beatitude. As to contemplative happiness, God possesses a continual and most certain contemplation of himself and all things else. The contemplation of God, of himself, is going to come out in the Blessed Trinity in a very powerful way. I don't want to give it away, but just hold on to that. Okay, hold on to God contemplating himself, which we already talked about, because God perfectly comprehends himself, right? And as to that which is active, he has the governance of the whole universe. As to earthly happiness, which consists in delight, riches, power, dignity, and fame, according to Boethius, he possesses, now, okay, and again, rather than saying all these bad things, these horrible things, power and fame and delight, he's saying, no, they're related to God. These are good things, right? But they come from God, and they're related to God. Okay, he possesses joy in himself and all things else for his delight. Instead of riches, he has that complete self-sufficiency, which is promised by riches. In place of power, he has omnipotence. For dignities, the government of things, and in place of fame, he possesses the admiration of all creatures. So again, this is really interesting, because we're going to get into the treatise on the final end, and those things which often men mistakenly assign as their final end, like the things that Aquinas just mentioned. But Harry's saying it's okay, these are good things, but they're not the ultimate good, because God is the ultimate good. God is our beatitude, and these things are only good in their relationship to God as beatitude itself, which we can experience through union with God, which is related to our intellect. But remember, intellect is related to will, and will is related to love, as we learned previously. All right, that is question number 26, and we have now officially finished the treatise on the one God. If you have watched all these videos, pat yourself in the back. Congratulations. Let me know if you're still rolling along in the Summa here, and we will get to question number 27 and a new treatise tomorrow. God bless you. St. Thomas Aquinas, pray for us.